Okay, my name is Allie, for those of you who don't know me. Thank you guys for joining. So we are going to be covering like specific pillars of information. We're going to be talking about, I'll share my screen. So this is what we'll be covering. We'll be covering information about film school, experiences going to film school and being a film major, the film industry, film internships, creative processes, and advice on kind of getting started on new projects, overarching advice and wisdom, and then I'll open up the floor for some questions at the end. I think we should start off by introducing the three panelists. We have Jonah, Ben, and Oliver. So if you guys want to.
I can start us off. What's good, guys? My name is Jonah. I just graduated last semester and I went to NYU for film and TV. I'm originally from New Jersey and currently just living in New York City, staying here, picking up projects, seeing what's happening. For my focus, I tend to do more directing and gaffing. If you guys don't know what a gaffer is, it's like the head of the lighting department. And I also dabble in photography too.
Hey guys, I'm Ben. I graduated NYU in 2022. I studied film as well. Right now, I work in the branded video and music video space. And my focuses were directing and editing.
Hey guys, I'm Oliver, studying film and TV and business at NYU, from Orange County, California. But my focus is like more pre-production stuff, like whether it's writing with someone or just like producing something. And then I also like editing too here and there. And then yeah.
So let's start off with information about film school. What is going to film school like? What's it like being a film major? Like its pros and cons. We can start off with that.
We all need Well, I'm still in school, so maybe like I'll just say something real quick, but I think it's mostly positive. I think just being in that space, you're just very lucky to be able to like express yourself in like a creative way and just be surrounded with creatives. I think that's just like awesome. You get to meet like people like Jonah and Ben, on sets and stuff. It's just really fun being in that environment. In terms of cons, I think one of the main things is like it's kind of what you put into it. So if you think stuff will kind of come to you, um, like it's not really a con, it's more of like an eye opener, but it kind of teaches you to just kind of be hungry for stuff. And yeah, if you want to like kind of make it in this industry, you just gotta be like constantly making. So that's kind of a really big pro and side con to this.
Yeah, adding on, I think different film schools will offer completely different experiences. Um, all three of us went to NYU, and like part of the ethos I feel of NYU is that there's great classes, there's great professors and stuff, but to me, the most valuable part was actually working on sets and making connections and gaining experience with your peers. Um, so I feel like if you guys are interested in applying, I would recommend in looking into the specific minutia of each program, because I know places like USC are way more kind of industry and studio adjacent, and they're more leaning into the business side. A place like NYU is more focusing on indie and like building your artistic voice. So it depends on what you're looking for, but they wildly vary depending on what program you're interested in.
Yeah, just a disclaimer, you really do not need film school to become a filmmaker. I just want to make that super clear. However, I will say that film school is very helpful for those of you who are really new to the creative field and just need to get your foot in the door. A huge con of film school is that it's just really expensive. And if that's going to be like a problem for you, I would definitely recommend like weighing your options, because for me personally, like I was able to make it work, but everyone's financial situations are different. And if it's going to put you in like a massive amount of debt, it's something you're gonna probably have to like seriously think about and discuss, like especially with your parents too. But I will say like pros for film school is just the fact that at least for NYU, they strongly encourage like doing stuff outside of just like your classes, right? We do a lot of student sets. So I remember like sophomore year, like every weekend, I was essentially on a different set, doing something different, meeting new people. And then these kind of friendships, you kind of culture and invest in through just like meeting up over and over again on different sets and like staying connected, asking people to help out on your stuff, and then them asking you to help out on their stuff too. Yeah, even like the professors too at NYU are very well connected in the industry, so they know exactly what they're talking about. I will say though, like classes for me were a lot less interesting and a lot less informative than I thought it would have been. But I guess it really depends on the professor and depends on like what you're trying to learn. So these are just like a few things to keep in mind.
What has been your biggest takeaway from film school? Because I know there's some discourse surrounding whether film school is really about the classes that you're taking or if it's more about the connections that you're making.
Go first and just build off what I was saying earlier. I think my biggest takeaway is, well, first and foremost, I think film school is really about the connections. It's less about the classes. It's going to be the students you work with constantly and the students you meet, like in your class or on set, that are going to be like your network graduating. Like Ben and I, we met randomly on a music video set 2 years ago, and now we just constantly hit each other up for work. And it's been like an awesome relationship and friendship that we've built up these past few years. Even Oliver, I met randomly in a club event, and he and I are still like relatively close. And even though we're doing like different things now, but I will say another takeaway from just NYU is like I think it's very cool how they give us very like updated equipment to use. Like everything we use on our sets, it's all borrowed from NYU. And excuse me, everything they use, like the cameras, the lights, it's all stuff you're gonna find on industry level sets, right? Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I could echo what Jonah said for sure. I think classes were great. I had some amazing classes, but the longest lasting takeaway that I had was the relationships because the majority of everybody that you will work with and you will make friendships with in film school end up going into the industry to some regard. So it's lovely to have a big community that's going up together. And yeah, also the equipment thing, that's huge, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know, I'm just repeating what they're saying, but yeah, definitely like meeting cool people. That's like the biggest thing um you gotta do in film school. I mean, yeah, you just gotta put yourself out there too. But I'm kind of a nerd. I kind of like the classes. Like I think you meet cool people there too, and like it sounds bad, but like sucking up to the professors and just actually just trying to learn about the craft. Like that's something that I've taken advantage of because it's not often you get to like learn about like a specific period in like art without like that's just like your whole life too. So that's it's really fun just taking advantage of those classes and like Jonah said, if you're paying this much money for like to learn about like finger painting and stuff, might as well just like kind of be there for the for every event, every class. But yeah.
What skills do you guys believe are most crucial to find success in the film industry? And how do you think if film school has been helping you develop those skills?
I think for me, sorry, Oliver, I saw you unmuted. I think for me, the top two skills that I needed to develop, and I think is very important for every film major or filmmaker, sorry, is the desire and openness to learn, and B, just like being able to talk to people and get along with people, right? I'll tackle like the first one. I would say whenever you're on a set, or even if you're like in class, like you should always be asking questions. You should always be trying to understand things that maybe you don't even necessarily care about, but like by you constantly asking questions, trying to like build up your repertoire of knowledge, like not only will your knowledge increase, but people will also notice that too and be more willing to like teach you and slash get to know you, because people like it when you ask them for help. So like the more you ask them for help, the more they're gonna like you, to be honest. And number two, I would say just being open to like meeting new people and putting yourself out there. This is more so for like the introverts. I know it's like hard sometimes, and I know like sometimes you just want to stay comfortable in your own little bubble. But if you want to I don't want to say necessarily succeed, but like it'll definitely help if you can get along with different kinds of people, because you're going to be meeting a lot of different kinds of people. And people will only want to work with you and get to know you if they feel like you are willing to reciprocate that energy, right? So just like even on set, even in class, like getting to know 1 to 2 people really well, being really friendly, being really social with them, and then building these connections and then investing in these friendships, because they're the ones who are eventually going to help you get more work in the future. And it's just going to be like a mutually beneficial relationship at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was pretty comprehensive. The important thing about the film industry as well is that it is an incredibly social industry. It's a lot about making connections, and it's a lot about meeting people who will bring you with them and returning the favor. It's reciprocal. Um, and also, I think, I mean, unless you're particularly like working in post or you're a colorist, end of the day, it's just a great like part of life to be able to uh, work so socially and to be able to be in a space where you are actively making connections and you get to uh, work with your friends a lot. I think that's like one of the most beautiful things that you can do. So it's not all just hard work and networking. I think there's uh, a lot of enjoyment to be had in being creative with your friends and seeing how far that takes you.
I think like another thing too is just like communication, just kind of like a subdivision of like being social, but like I guess seeing it from like a more like business side, like being able to express your ideas and just be confident about like what you're trying to say. I think that's like a big thing. I think it's easy to just feel like a little corny sometimes about like talking about art or something very personal to you, but I think people really appreciate it if you're very open and um obviously don't be like a dick and stuff and say like this is shit like to someone else's idea, but just if you're able to communicate like very well and just um kind of say what's good about it, what's not good, or like what you think you can improve on in your own script, I think that's very beneficial. And in terms of like a more creative skill, I think being able to recognize like good stories is like a big thing. I think just like read a bunch of screenplays, just like watch a bunch of stuff, and then you can like film school will help you to like kind of understand story structure. But I think just really knowing what's personal to you and finding a bit of a story that kind of resonates with you, I think that's a very good skill to just kind of keep in mind when you're trying to think of which projects to kind of approach.
Okay, I think we covered the scope about the film major in school. So do you guys want to talk about your industry experience now? What have you learned from actually being on set, like hands-on working, creating your film?
Um, I don't know if you guys know what gripping is, but it's just like working with equipment. I just gotta say, like, if you're gonna go down like that route and be on sets, you kind of have to have like a little bit of muscle. I think like by the end of a set, your back is just like in so much pain. Like especially if you're working for Jonah, like Jonah will make you work. But I think just be when you're on sets, just be very open. I think like the most fun sets I've been on have been the ones where like everyone's just down to do whatever. As long as it's safe, like and the vibes are just very, very good. So just when you're first on a set, just be very, be very welcoming and be like curious. Like I think another thing too is like you don't want to sometimes you don't want to feel like you look like a noob and not know what you're doing, but in doing so you can like look even more like a noob. So I think just asking for help whenever you need it is just like a really good thing to know and just do when you're on a set.
I think obviously there's all the technical knowledge, like how equipment works, what the like workflow is of a set, like all sorts of like minutia that is very important to pick up. But then once you learn that, um, I feel there is a level of confidence that anybody who has learned like the workflow of a set can kind of move on to other sets and feel confident in that space. Um, but that being said, you never know everything. And so even to this day, every time I wrap something, I'm like, damn, like I learned something new. There's not really like a wiki for how the film industry works, especially on set. A lot of it is like learning by doing, learning from more from mentors, from people that have more experience than you. But you definitely gain a lot of technical knowledge by working on set. Um, but then I also think you also get the ability to observe people in roles that you want to be. Like if you wanted to be a director, if you're working on a set and you're PAing or you're gripping or doing anything, you can watch them and see how they work and what their style is and take that away from your experience. So like there's regardless of whether or not you're working on set in the role that you eventually want to be, there is a lot of opportunity for cross-pollination and like taking a look at, oh, where do I want to go from here? How do they work? Because every set runs a little differently. And I think uh, there's so much value in being there, not just to learn about what you've been hired to do.
So I think for NYU, the reason why it's so great is because the student sets closely mirror like real industry sets. So like whenever I'm on a student production, it looks exactly the same. It's run exactly the same as like say a big brand like video or a bigger movie or et cetera in the real like film industry. And one thing I've learned about just like sets in general is like never be afraid to make mistakes. I think failing a lot is huge for the film industry and being on film sets, and especially like as a student when you're younger, like people are going to be more understanding. So like take advantage of every set you get on. Again, like Ben and Oliver kind of mentioned before, always be open to asking questions, asking for help, also being open to like meeting new people, getting their insight, because there's always so much you have to learn, right? There's always new wisdom that you can pick up from people. But it's also about like not being afraid of just like throwing yourself in the deep end, if you're always constantly scared of like, oh, I don't know enough, or like, oh, I'm gonna mess up in this way or that way, like you're just gonna hinder yourself from learning, honestly. So just don't be afraid of just taking that first step and just doing it and just trying it. If it fails, like take it as a learning opportunity, because these moments are going to be so good for you now, and people are going to be more understanding now compared to like 10, 20 years down the line where you're making like newbie mistakes and people are just going to get frustrated with you. Like, why are you still making these mistakes? You know what I mean?
Do you guys want to talk about film internships? What are they like, and how did you get involved with those?
So I think film internships can really vary depending on where you're interning. I know people that have interned for companies, but the internship that I had during college was for an executive. So I was working in close proximity with him, uh, answering emails, talking about big projects, and that was eye-opening for me because I was seeing how when you get to like the higher levels, like these massive, like millions of dollars budgets, how does the top work there, and how do they disseminate information, and what is it like to try to pitch something that's going to hire hundreds of people, like be the biggest project a company is taking on. But I know people that have had internships in smaller independent productions. I know people that have had internships in kind of completely different places, like film archivals, like where people will be reviewing films and like trying to. Like, there's a tons of ins in the industry where you can find an internship. And I think end of the day, they're all valuable in their own way. My particular experience, though, was working as an assistant to an exec. And I would recommend that. I thought it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, building off what Ben said, I would say definitely try out internships and pick up different internships because there are a bunch. I will say though, like film internships or even like creative internships in general, they're very limited and there's a lot of competition. So it's very difficult sometimes. So just keep that in mind. For me personally, I think I didn't really enjoy the internship I picked up. Most creative/film internships are going to be very business heavy or like pre-production or post-production heavy. I personally enjoy being on set a lot more, and you're not going to find internships that like that often that allow you to do that. So for me, like I had a production, like pre-production internship where I helped the producers like find locations or like cold call vendors or whatever, send out like write up emails, do script analysis, and these kind of things. Like it was great. It was a great learning opportunity, but I just hated every moment of it because that's just not what I'm interested in doing. So definitely try it out and see for yourself. But I just didn't really enjoy climbing that corporate ladder, if that makes sense. Because for me, I wanted to be a filmmaker, to be more creative, to be able to work independently. Whereas like if you start doing internships, it feels more like corporate. And that just didn't fit into what I was looking for.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a drawback for some people who go into film. It's like it's not to get the creative roles, you like the steps you have to take is like I don't know, you don't see like the fruits of your labor until you're like late 20s, even like 30s even. But I would say in terms of internships, I think doing something every summer and even like every semester is probably like a good idea if you really want to like come out of college like at a good like kind of good level. But also just like if you're struggling to find things, I would say just talk to people like your mentors, peers. They have like insights on like how to do this stuff, like other opportunities. I think just yeah, just seeking help is like a big thing. And then whether it's like resume help or just like interviewing help, I think there's just many opportunities for you to like kind of put your foot in the door. But yeah, I was actually working on a resume right before this, so definitely try and work on it as much as you can too. Not right now though. You don't have to stress about it right now as high schoolers.
So we have a silent film competition coming up. So I thought it'd be helpful if you guys talk about some advice on starting new projects, or kind of walk us through your creative process. How has that kind of evolved through your years of experience as a filmmaker? And just general advice for starting new projects, because I know a lot of people on the Zoom are people who are interested in filmmaking, but they haven't necessarily been able to take the steps to make like a full project, or they don't know how to get started like that.
Sure. I think it's great to be creating as early as you can. I think everybody's creative process can vary. Something that helps me in particular, I can share a slight anecdote. In NYU Tisch, there's this class called Sight and Sound. Um, and to me, that was one of the most valuable classes I took because the gist of it is that every other week you have to create a film. You're assigned with a crew and you have your equipment and they give you a prompt every other week. And whether you like it or not, you have to show something every other week, even if you think it's trash or even if like you crammed it the night before. I feel that the creative process, the pathway between having no idea and having a finished product, the more you do that, rinse and repeat, the easier it becomes to cultivate ideas and to take something from idea to reality. So if this silent film competition that you guys have is for some of you your first time, I can guarantee that it may be difficult to come up with an idea or to execute it properly. But the best thing you can do is to keep creating. And the more you blow on that spark, the easier it'll be to bring that back anytime, like on command. But in terms of like a specific tip I could give is collaborate, actually. Some of my favorite writing sessions or some moments where I have come up with a crazy concept have been with a friend where we're just chopping it up. Like, what are we gonna do? Oh, like what if we had the camera on this and like, oh shit, and ideas pile up. I really enjoy that process too. I think it makes it a lot less intimidating when you're not in a room alone having to be like, what am I gonna do? I think this craft, filmmaking, is very rewarding when you can share some of that weight with somebody else. Other than that, I would recommend consuming as much art as you can too. I think inspiration comes from uh, seeing things and being like, oh shoot, like that was really cool. How can I put my own spin on that? How can I do a pastiche of whatever techniques that you find? Yeah.
Ben stole all of my answers. But I will say, like, I will emphasize the collaboration part too. I remember like one time it was like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Ben, me, and like 2 other friends were wrapping up a shoot in like Connecticut. We were just like at the Airbnb. And me, Ben, and this other guy named Ethan, we were just like brainstorming crazy for this new film that I wanted to shoot. And it was like a volleyball movie idea. But that was like one of my favorite memories ever on set, just because like we just kept bouncing ideas off each other. We were hyping one another up when like someone else was like throw in this little detail or I was throwing this other idea. And I think it's just so rewarding to be able to build upon each other's creativity and then create like a product together, right? Obviously, like at the end of the day, like you're gonna have to shoot the short film yourself, or like it's your idea, but it's very helpful to like run it by other people, have their insight, see what they think, and just create something beautiful together.
Yeah, I think Jonah and Ben like killed that. I think yeah, I think just if this is your first kind of projects, I'm super jealous of like high schoolers because my favorite films were made in high school because I just like didn't care about like rules or anything like that. It was just me like messing around with friends and like even we would like act in our own stuff. So it was like us shooting it, us acting in it. Like no one was like a director. Like everyone gave an input. So I think just like kind of failing and like being okay that you like made like a shitty project. Like I never said my projects in high school were good. Like they were like straight ass, but like I like them just for how much fun I had when I was making them. And I just that's why I Jonah and Ben, they were talking about sets. I don't love sets that much because I think it can be kind of formulaic sometimes. Like, oh, you're sticking to this. I kind of like it when everyone has input, but yeah, I think just collaborating with friends at this age is just like the most like awesome thing, and just failing like and and even if you hate what you have, just kind of edit it and finish it, and then from there you can learn like why you hated it, or if you just show it to someone else too. Like I really like showing projects to friends and family, and then whether they like it or not, I just really like hearing it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like ultimately, since you are in high school and you're not making a project for anyone, it's a good opportunity to fall in love with the process and fall in love with the craft and figure out what you enjoy about it. Um, and you guys don't have a client that you have to satisfy. You guys don't have an assignment that somebody's going to tell you. Maybe whatever film festival that you're applying to has a prompt or something. But end of the day, like I think you guys are young enough where you're in a place to really create for the purpose solely of creating, and to just have fun with that entire process and explore the world of that.
Also, to build off what Oliver and Ben said, like, um, I personally, I'm very like perfectionist, but I would strongly discourage that kind of attitude, especially when you guys are like so young and starting to make like maybe your first, second, films. Don't be so caught up in the, oh, this has to be like a masterpiece. I need to win like the film festival or whatever. Just like take an idea that you love and run with it. Like not everything has to be perfect because there's so many factors that are limiting you right now, whether it be like time, equipment, resources, people, like just do what you can and try to enjoy just the process of making it. And if it turns out really bad at the end, so what? Like as long as you like loved the process of creating it, you know what I mean?
Well, if you think there's anything you haven't touched on, the next section is kind of just main pieces of advice. What would be like the overarching wisdom that you want everyone to gain from this webinar?
Damn, let me think about that. I think if I was to give one overarching piece of advice, it would be to create. I think it's easy to get caught up in uh, a variety of things regarding contextually with the industry, like, oh, I have to apply to college, so I have to have this experience under my belt, or I have to commit to being this particular role because this is where the jobs are and this is what happens. Like, as much as you can be prepared, don't worry about all that because the heart of filmmaking is creating. And so never forget to enjoy it. If this is a place where you want to go with your life, then fall in love with it, have fun with it, and don't forget the whole reason why you started.
I think we kind of touch on like a lot of things, but I think the main thing I would take away is like, it's good if you do all these things that we mentioned, but I would say just kind of stay genuine to yourself. I think film's like one of those industries where you don't have to like shapeshift to be something that you're not. Like, I think people really appreciate when you are who you are, and like that energy that you supply like kind of makes people gravitate towards you too. And I think as long as you're just doing projects that are true to yourself, like meeting friends that like kind of fit your vibe too, or it's also good to meet people that like kind of like challenge you. I think just as long as you kind of stay genuine but not too comfortable, I think that's like a great thing that can help you. Maybe in film school, maybe in life, but just like kind of take on stuff that feels right to you.
Yeah, kind of building off what Oliver said, for me, the biggest advice I would give is just being open to new experiences. I think complacency and comfortability are the two biggest killers of growth. And I'm not saying like you always need to be like grinding and like burning yourself out, but I'm saying like always be open to like doing something new. You know, there's always something new to learn. There's always something new to do. The creative field is is one that is, you have a lot of freedom in, right? Like nobody is telling you like, oh, by the time you're a junior, you should have like 2 internships up like on your belt. Like one thing I really dislike about business and tech, or even like the medical field, is that like in college it's super structured. Like there's a huge pipeline that like you have to do XYZ by a certain age in order to succeed. But then for like creative field, like there's nothing of that sort. Maybe you might hate that there's no structure, but for me, I think it's a great opportunity to just like try so many different things, learn so many different things, you know, being creative, being able to create new products and projects. It's all built off of like things that you've experienced, right? One thing my dad always told me is like, just, you know, if you're usually uncomfortable with like a certain thing, like let's for example give like skydiving, right? Just like give it a shot, because that might create a new story for you in the future. Like that might be your future project. Like go on that solo trip that you've always wanted to go on, because that's going to be a future project, a future idea. Meeting new people from different backgrounds, not just like creative in a creative sense, but also just like in a life sense too. Like you'll be able to understand different viewpoints, you'll be able to understand different beliefs, etc. And that can all help you in your creative processes in the future. Like for myself, I'm actually in this August, I'm going abroad to Japan for like a year or two. And that is something I would usually never do, but I wanted to try it, live in this foreign country for like a few years, just because like the stories that I'm going to experience in this foreign country is going to be like so different from what I'm used to in America, right? So not being afraid to try new things and experience different things, and never being complacent in where you are is I think key to succeeding as a creative.
Okay, that was all for the 5 sections. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask them right now, or a couple people have chatted me some questions, but yeah, you can unmute and ask questions if you have any, or you can chat them to me and I can ask them.
Hi, I have a question. I think I heard some of you saying that you work in like more specific fields now in the film industry, such as like lighting and handling like equipment and stuff like that. And I was wondering if there were courses available to you in film school that let you explore more specific things, and how you kind of like decided you wanted to work more like in that field.
Yeah, there
That's
are.
yeah, it's like a Jonah question. I feel like Jonah's like
Yeah, I was
the
wondering if
legend.
Jonah was gonna answer.
Why is it a Jonah question?
You're a gaffer.
Okay. Yeah, I could take this question. Thank you. Is it Ellie or L?
Yeah, Ellie.
Okay. Thank you, Ellie, for your question. Yes, there are a ton of different classes that will help you explore different roles and different positions like at NYU, there's like a bunch of directing classes or producing classes or editing classes, or there's even like special effects makeup classes that you can take. But for me personally, as a gaffer, honestly, there are not a lot of gaffers at NYU because people don't usually like to work with lights. But I fell in love with gaffing because of just being on set. My first position on set was a key grip, which is essentially just like the head of um, the people who are in charge of like handling equipment and lights and stuff, right? And I started off as a key grip and then kind of like through the process of working alongside the gaffer, working alongside other people in the lighting department, I began to really appreciate what lighting and what this department does for the film, right? And the more I like picked up these kind of positions, the more I decided like, oh, this is definitely something I want to do for myself later on. But I also explored a lot of different roles too. Like I was in the camera department for a little bit. I did a little bit of producing. I did a little bit of sound mixing. And it was only after trying these different departments, excuse me, where I realized like, dude, I hate sound. Like sound is so boring for me. But like for other people, they love it. I don't know why they love it, but they just decided like, oh, this is what I want to do. And that's totally like respectable as well. For camera, I also didn't really enjoy it just because for me, it was too technical and it felt like very easy to burn out in. Even producing, like I hate logistics. It's like very like business oriented work. And I hated that kind of stuff too. So yeah, there's for sure a bunch of different classes that you can do within your specific like film school, of course, but I would say like set is where you learn the majority of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Should we answer BP's question? Or I don't know what that stands for, but I just saw that in the chat. But
Yeah. You guys can answer that, and then I have a couple that other people have sent me.
okay. Yeah, I'm I'm actually super jealous. Sorry, I'm actually
Yeah,
super jealous of like animation kids because there's actually when you're a freshman, you have the opportunity to like take an animation class, and people like complain about that class because it's like too much work, and you spend like 20 hours to make like a 2 second clip. But like I think I would have like if I thought better, I would have taken that class too because you definitely meet like really cool people that are into everything. That's like into everything, like animation, all sorts of stuff. Like I think just incorporating as much like different mediums into your own like films, I think that's like a great thing about film school too. Like you meet all sorts of people that can like kind of help you like build an identity, like an artist identity and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, there's definitely like opportunities to collaborate with people, animation students. You just gotta reach out and then kind of know who to talk to. But
yeah, as Oliver mentioned, I took that class. Um, I took a bunch of animation classes actually, and Tisch has a cool community there. There's a lot of good infrastructure for animation kids. I wish there was more overlap with people that work in me like the general film production side. But they have their own like club, and then they send out emails that have like work and opportunities for animation. Um, I would say Tisch has a pretty strong animation infrastructure and community there, and I wish they overlapped with some of us, but I signed up for the Student Animation League just so I could find people that in the case in which I ever needed to collaborate with an animator. So there is opportunities to mix around, but I'm sure with other schools that you may end up applying to, they probably have even stronger animation programs. Like I'm sure like Cal Arts and other shit like that. Like they're like goaded. But at a place like Tisch, they're there and they're all very brilliant and they have their own little floor. And it's a cool area. It's very homey. So yeah. And to answer the second part, city life in NYC is pretty cool. I feel like it gets depending on where you're moving from. I came from California. It had a learning curve, but ultimately I'm really happy living in the city. It can get hectic, but we all live so close together, and I think it's really dope to live in the city with your peers.
Yeah, Ben and I live literally like right across from each other. Or like the same group of buildings.
Yeah.
Ben, BP also asked like, do you have any advice for high schoolers trying to find animators? I don't know if
Let me think about that. So to my knowledge, a lot of like the uprising animators in the community, there's a lot of actual community to be found online. I know about, because animation can work remote, I know about productions that have hired animators slash had in between artists come in who work in from Canada, who work in like other parts of the world. So I think at this age range would be dope to hop on a Reddit, hop on a Discord somewhere, if you're looking to like get your hands dirty and like learn the ropes. Because it is an industry that can work remotely. So
but just a heads up, most animators I feel like expect pay. You might get lucky and like get connected to an animator who would be like super down to collaborate, but it's just something to keep in mind, I would say.
You guys see the weirdest project question?
yeah, that's a good one.
I feel like I don't have like a bunch of like personal weird project stories, but you always hear like someone else like going through some crazy stuff. Like I feel like especially at film school, you like kind of attract like some weirdos. Like there's definitely some people who are like, yeah, we gotta shoot like a full bondage film that like just represents like the oppression of like my Asian culture or something like that. But I think like you definitely get all sorts of stories, but I think just being open to it and just being like, yeah, I'll work on it. Like it's just a good story to kind of tell people too. I think yeah. And that stuff about like the bondage thing, that actually was like a true set. So you'll definitely hear stuff like that. But just yeah, keep an open mind, ask questions.
I don't personally have like a project that I thought was like super weird, quote unquote, but I heard of like a friend who was on a set where like they had like a full-on sex scene, like full body nudity, like as college students. I personally thought that was kind of crazy. But apparently it was like an experimental film, and it was supposed to represent like uh oppression of minorities and like your own personal psyche and how it deals with oppression. But yeah, like Oliver said, don't be like turned off by weird project ideas, because those will always happen, but always look for ways you can learn from these projects, no matter how weird the plot may or may not be. But also just make sure you're comfortable with these kind of projects. Like I don't think I would personally be okay with like full on nudity being on a set like that, but if you're okay with that, like go for it, you know.
They all summed it up.
Okay, how difficult was it getting your foot in the door and connecting with others before going to NYU and having access to more opportunities to collaborate with people?
I actually have a funny story about this. So when I first got accepted, I was I was actually in the NYU like summer high schoolers like workshop. I don't know if any of you guys are like trying to do that, but like I made a couple films there and I didn't think much of it. Then I applied and I got in, and then someone hit me up and was like, yeah, like I saw your film in the summer high school's workshop thing. I think we worked together, but I'd love to just keep up over the summer. And then I just like left him undelivered. I'm like, this guy's weird. Why is he hitting me up? Like school hasn't even started. So me telling you guys to like just be brave and stuff. Like that's coming from experience. But that guy's actually like one of my closest friends here in college. And then whenever he gets drunk, he always likes to just make fun of me for that. And he's just like, remember when you were just like such a bad friend? But yeah, I think like in terms of connecting with people, just if someone hits you up, don't initially think they're weird. Like I did, just kind of be open to who you're gonna meet, and yeah, that can lead you to some pretty cool opportunities, I think.
I didn't really find myself very connected before going to NYU. Obviously, to apply, you have to make a application film. A lot of people, depending on what your world is like in high school, a lot of people have collaborators immediately that you can work with, but others may be in a more solitary place where nobody around them is interested in the arts. So for me, it wasn't too difficult because I had a couple of friends. They weren't very passionate about film itself, but they were open to connecting and making my application film with me. Um, and then when you get into college, like if you get into NYU, they do a great job of doing community events and giving you chances to connect with people. But in terms of before going to NYU, I feel like it's largely dependent on the context of where you are and the people around you.
I think Ben and Oliver summed it up pretty well. I don't really have anything additional to add. So we can move on to Landon's question.
Which one of them? There's I think there's like 10 in there.
We could just like go down.
I'm sorry. I had a few and I pasted them all by accident.
No,
No, it's all good.
No,
We'll
you're
try our
chilling. I
best
like
to cover it.
it. Is there one that like you really
Oh yeah. Could you answer the first one
Mm,
about inspiration,
sure.
TV show, movies?
All right,
Yeah.
Oh, Ben.
I had a movie that I watched in 2017 that really like rocked my world. It's Baby Driver by Edgar Wright. But that spoke to me stylistically because I really liked the fusion of music and editing that they had in that movie. I liked the song choices, and um, it kind of tapped. It was a movie I saw that I was like, damn, I wish I made that. I suddenly feel very inspired stylistically. And that was the one that really pushed me to like lock in. So yeah.
For me, I don't personally have any specific like movies or shows that inspired me to get into the field, but there's definitely been a lot of movies and shows that have affirmed and validated like why I want to be in this field, if that makes any sense. Like one of the main reasons why I wanted to get into film and TV is because like I wanted to bring more Asian American representation to like the film industry. Just because like, you know, you have your big Hollywood blockbusters, and then you also have your like foreign country like specific Asian films. Like Chinese films are great, Hong Kong films are great, Japanese films are great, but there lacked a lot of like films that tackled Asian American stories. But when Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, I think that was like coming out of the movie theater after watching that, I was like, yeah, like this is the reason why I want to like do what I do. Like these are the type of movies that I want to create in the future. And it just like gave me a lot more motivation and drive to you know, kind of I guess recontextualizing what my focus should be on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I watched like I still watch, but I watch a lot of YouTube. I was like a kid, I loved like Casey Neistat, and then I thought he was corny for a bit, and then recently I rewatched his stuff, and I'm like, this is some of like the coolest like things. Like I can't believe like he was like doing that. But I think my taste has kind of changed since joining film school. Like the movies I like and the TV shows I like, you just kind of find new things. Like that's just kind of how it goes. Like Eternal Sunshine has something that's always stuck with me. I think I watched Breaking Bad over college, and that was like a crazy show too. Just how like I like movies and like TV shows that kind of like blend comedy and like drama a lot. But yeah, I think just kind of looking at like old movies too to really get inspiration, which kind of touches on your other question. I think like just seeing like how things were initially made, like without all this like fancy technology, is just really inspiring. Like I sound like such a film bro, but I saw 12 Angry Men too recently, and that's just all dialogue in like a single room. And that was like the coolest like movie I've ever seen. Like just being able to kind of just convey these like complex ideas just through like exposition was crazy. And I guess while I'm answering that one, I'd talk about the technology. I like last summer I worked on I don't know if you're familiar with like a virtual wall, like LED wall, but like Mandalorian was shot on that kind of stuff. But I think there's definitely really cool things going on with technology in the technology space. I think AI we don't have to worry about too much because I think with the strikes, what we saw was like people really prioritize a creative like human voice. Like if you're writing essays, I think AI is like the best thing ever. Like it just essays are kind of meaningless to me. So I use like ChatGPT for that stuff. But I think there's nothing to worry about in terms of like job security. If it's more of a creative role in the future, I think just yeah, um constantly watch stuff. Do you have any like shows or movies that you really like or kind of inspire you or
I mean, I really enjoy all the movies you guys brought up. I think 12 Angry Men is really interesting. How you can just like I feel like movies today are so complicated with like everything going on where you can just have a movie with just dialogue and it can be such a renowned and like historical movie. So
that's cool. That's
yeah.
cool you watched it. I would if I was your age, I would never watch that shit. But yeah, I
On the
think
topic of AI, I think it's a tool. I think there's a lot of jurisdiction that's going to be built around it, but I used it in a video recently. I think it's a tool especially for people that are independent filmmakers. Uh, I worked on a music video lately, and we didn't have the privilege of having a VFX department. It was just one guy. So he used Stable Diffusion to generate tons of frames of this VFX vision that we had. Turned out so cool. I think there's risk of it being harmful for particular corners of the industry, and I think there is need for concern about that. But what's in our control is how we utilize that tool, and um, I think there are ways of implementing AI in a creative manner uh, and in a ethical way. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Shall we move on to the next question? I'll say some that I got on my private chat. Someone asked, who are your favorite directors and what was the origin for their passion? What was the origin for your passion for creating?
Ooh, I really liked or still enjoy Wes Anderson. I think when I first started off, I love like symmetry, and the way that Wes Anderson did it is like cannot be beat. But yeah, I think like these kind of directors, they're all like well known for something, and being able to again, as Ben mentioned like way before, like take your own spin on the things they do, I think is a really strong skill that we as creatives should be able to learn how to do. Yeah, drawing inspiration is huge, right? Especially when it comes to like not just storytelling, but also just like visual techniques as well.
My favorite director right now is Paul Thomas Anderson. I think he's a very singular voice, and um, I think he's really cool because he writes everything he makes and occasionally DPs features that he makes. So this guy has his hands on like every facet of the work that he's creating, and there's really like fun sense of humor and sensibility just about everything he does. In terms of what got me interested in film in the first place, I think a lot of the media you consume when you're younger really can be formative in telling you the type of work that you want to make and the life you want to live. For me, I watched like Avatar: The Last Airbender when I was a kid, and that like totally shaped my ideals and my interests going forward for the rest of my life. Super formative.
Dude, I've been watching so many clips of Avatar recently. I was like,
It
I was
does
like,
not get old, bro.
I was just like in the shower. I'm like, what if I like try and like waterbend now? And then like nothing happened, but I was just like, I was in there back then. But I think I like Spike Jones. Like I was really into skating when I was younger. Then like I knew Spike Jones from like skate videos and not like his other things. But then like you watch his career of how it like transformed from like a skate or like a BMX photographer to like a skate videographer to like a music video director to like an Oscar winning director. It's like really cool. But I think that's like kind of like something that maybe like a lesson to be held there is just be open to like what opportunities come to you. Um, but yeah, in terms of like me getting into this stuff, I think it was just like Ben said, like you just kind of consume a bunch of stuff and then it just really gets you inspired to be like, maybe I can do this too. Like, and then yeah, I think just kind of stick with it. That's the thing too.
How competitive is the job market, and does going to film school actually help overcome this?
It's quite competitive. Um, Going to film school does help, in my opinion, but it depends. Uh, you're Me and Jonah we work freelance. We also work in the production sphere. So that is a world where maybe film school isn't as necessary. I know people that have broken in just by working their way up and meeting people through sets, just kind of following that tree of connection. But I think if you are interested in working on the corporate side of the industry, film school is a huge help. I know a lot of companies will not hire people that don't have like entertainment related experience, whether that is majoring in some form of entertainment or uh, having previous work at a company in the industry. So um, I would argue that film school helps, but I know that there may be dissenting opinions regarding this. Or not.
No, I completely agree with Ben. I think, yeah, it really depends on what job market you're talking about, because I think two different job markets is, as Ben mentioned, the freelance sphere versus the like corporate internship slash pre-production sphere. That's like kind of completely different. Freelance, you really don't need film school. But yeah, if you're trying to get an internship at like Disney or like Warner Brothers, they're gonna look more closely at your resume and see what kind of experience you have before they decide. And the thing is, like, if you're not in a film school, you have to understand there's like 50,000 other students who are in film school who are applying for these exact same positions. So at the end of the day, it's like it's really difficult. But it's ultimately like what you want to do, right? Freelancing, if I know like so many students who they didn't do film as a major, but they wanted to switch into it. So they would literally just get onto like a student set and then continue making connections through these student sets, and then eventually they'll get connected to like a producer in the industry who like always gets them for like a commercial or music video. Like honestly, for me, that's what happened for me with freelancing, because I was on a senior's like thesis film, and I got really close with the lead actress of this film, and she introduced me to her producer at her internship, who brought me on to like my first music video set, which is where I actually met Ben. And then through that music video, I like met a different producer. I made friends with like another DP and such, and then they kept calling me back. And then through that one meeting, like I was able to like kickstart my freelancing like career, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really have anything.
There's one more question that was asked. What advice would you give to someone interested in majoring in film, but more passionate about photography? Are there any NYU Tisch students that you've worked with that were in that situation?
There's a photography program. So I know a lot of people that went through that. They're all really cool. I think there's a big emphasis on photography at NYU. But I also know people that majored in film that work as photographers, because the skills are so transferable. Arguably, maybe this is my own opinion, but arguably it's easier to be a filmmaker and then be a photographer than to be a photographer and then be a filmmaker. Because adding, I guess, the essence of time onto your process like totally changes it. So yeah, I know a lot of people that we graduated with or that we knew from NYU Tisch Film that work in fashion photography, commercial photography now. It's totally transferable, and I wouldn't worry too much about having to commit to just one because you can get good at everything.
Yeah, I completely agree with Ben, because I've actually been getting into photography myself recently. There's this one production company that has been helping me learn how to like be a photo assistant. So I've been photo assisting for them a lot. And I also low-key kind of got connected in the wedding photography industry recently, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, on the point of what Ben said, it's so easy. Like photography is so much easier when you're coming from a background of film, because like film is just like it's so much more structured. There's so much more going on. Like there's different departments you have to worry about. There's like the camera, the sound, lighting, etc. But then for photography, it's like a team of 4 or 5 people just chilling. Like I've been on photography sets where like they just bring a speaker and bump music and it's just chill. And I just sit there and like we set up one light, you know, because that's all you really need, 1 or 2 lights, and then that's it. So if you are interested in both photography and film, definitely recommend going into film and then exploring photography while you're doing film.
But you're also talking to a bunch of film majors, so there's a good chance that if you talk to somebody who is fully invested in photography, they would recommend that. But um, depends on how interested you are in photography. If you're like, I want to be a photographer, die hard, like this is my thing, then like lean all the way into it. But um, I don't think there's anything wrong with learning both. And I think both have their interesting parts.
I got another question asking about kind of what activities you did in high school to prepare for college.
Low key, I didn't do anything. I'm gonna be so honest. Like when Allie told me she's doing this Zoom thing and panelists, I was like, dude, girl is doing too much. Like I never would have thought to do something this crazy as a high schooler. But like I kind of fell in love with like production in high school, because I was privileged enough where my high school had a really good TV studio. So I joined this class that was in charge of doing the daily like school morning announcements, and we kind of had like a show that everyone would tune into. And that's how, and then we would also do like short films, like as like specials for like Halloween or like Christmas or whatever, right? And that's how I kind of got into it. But I think I'm so sorry. What was the question again?
Like what activities you did to prep for college going into film school.
Yeah. So I had classes in high school that I could take. There was like a world film class that I also got to take in high school where it's literally just like watching old movies like French New Wave or like Kurosawa, and just like doing like film analysis on that kind of stuff. But that was the extent of like the activities I did, which is maybe not as helpful for you guys because again, different high schools have different like resources and such. But if you truly do want to, like, straight up you want to do like film in college and like as a career, I would say like what Ben said earlier, just create on your own. Like you don't need classes, you don't need like to have a bunch of friends who want to do it with you. Just do it yourself. Just do it. Of course, all these other things are helpful, right? Don't get me wrong. But if you truly want to do this kind of stuff, just watch more movies, watch more shows, create your own stuff, figure things out, learn what you like to do, learn what you don't like to do. Yeah.
I think college programs, especially in film, understand that people are coming from different places and they want to meet you where you're at. Um, because yeah, there are like some crazy high schools in the world where it's like it's an arts high school and like filmmaking is a required part of that. Like there are people that have different amounts of support. Um, and so I'd like to think that a lot of these programs understand that people have different amounts of resources. So when it comes down to it, what matters less is how hard it doesn't matter as much how hard you've prepped, and it matters more how developed your voice is, and what the film you make is. And sometimes the way you prep, the way you learn and formulate your artistic voice doesn't even come from taking film classes specifically. I came from a theater background. I did a lot of acting in high school, and I found that even that was incredibly transferable, and helped me build a foundation in thinking about story and uh, thinking about craft and directing people's attention. So in essence, the preparation that you may be looking for could come from a variety of different places, and it's all about just building your voice.
Yeah, I would say also if your like intentions is to like make money and fame with film, I would say like don't think of it like that. Like when I was in high school, I was just kind of just making it because it was just like a good like escape, I guess, from like thinking about all the other academic shit. And I think just like first and foremost, if you're in high school, like it shouldn't when you're making films and stuff, it shouldn't be like what's next, what's next. It should just be like how can I like kind of improve on like what I'm doing now. And just having fun with it. Like I think that's as long as you're having fun with the stuff that you're making, I think that's like the best prep you can do for college. I feel like. But that's what I did in high school.
I think those are all the questions we have. If does anyone have any last minute questions? If not, we can wrap this up. But I should have probably talked about this in the beginning, but I'll just introduce myself for those who don't know me. I'm Allie. I live in New Jersey. I go to Ramapo High School. And I just created Film Fusion because I want other people to have the opportunity to create projects that they're passionate about. I have made some films, but they've all been completely by myself or majority have been like a one-woman show. I'll act in my films, I'll write them, I'll shoot them. Like I do it all by myself. And I just always wished I had people to work with. So that's why I kind of created this community. And like Ben, Oliver, and Jonah were talking about, collaboration is so huge. in making these projects. So I hope you guys can find people to connect with. If you're not in the Slack, you should join, because that's how you can kind of talk with other people. And I hope you guys submit to the silent film competition. I think it's hopefully gives a lot of freedom. So if this is your first project, I hope you can think of something that you want to make for it. Yeah. And thank you to the three yappers and the advice that you gave.
Thank you for having us. It's wonderful.
If you ever our emails, you can always reach out to us if you have questions, or whatever. I'm sure Allie will disseminate that.
Yeah, I will distribute any emails, any reels of the 3 panelists if you guys have any more questions or want to see their work. And thank you for joining.